The grand mansion was silent, the kind of silence that carried secrets. The evening sun poured through the tall windows, lighting up the golden frame of a portrait that had just been unveiled. The guests clapped politely, admiring the image of a young boy with sharp eyes and a calm smile, a boy who, according to the host, had once saved his family's legacy. But before anyone could say more, a voice broke through the room. "Sir, this boy lived with me in the orphanage," shouted the maid, her trembling hands pointing at the portrait. All eyes turned to her. The maid, an older black woman with years of quiet service behind her, stood frozen, her heart pounding as memories she had buried long ago rushed back. No one believed her at first. Why would a servant from a distant town know anything about a child who'd supposedly come from privilege? But there was something in her voice, something raw and certain, that made the air shift. The man of the house frowned, studying her face. The guests whispered, unsure whether to laugh or listen. The maid's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "I raised him. I know that face better than anyone." A chill swept through the room. The boy in the portrait wasn't supposed to exist outside this family's story. So how did his past lead back to an orphanage and to her? The truth was about to shatter everything they thought they knew. The guests exchanged uneasy glances as the maid's words hung in the air. The host, Mr. Whitmore, cleared his throat, trying to regain control. "Martha, you must be mistaken," he said with a forced smile. "This portrait is of my late son, Daniel. He was never in any orphanage." But Martha didn't back down. Her voice trembled, yet there was steel in it. "No, sir. I remember him. His name was Eli back then. He used to help me serve food to the younger children. He had that same scar above his eyebrow. I'm sure of it." The room grew colder, the tension almost visible. The portrait's calm face suddenly seemed haunting under the chandelier's light. Mr. Whitmore's wife clutched her pearls, her eyes darting between her husband and the maid. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Our Daniel was adopted from a private home, not an orphanage." Martha's hands shook, but she stood firm. "With respect, ma'am, I was there the day he disappeared. They told us he'd been taken by a family who wanted to give him a better life. But no one ever came back, not even his records." Her eyes softened as she looked at the portrait again. "He was just a boy who wanted to be loved." Whispers rippled through the room. Mr. Whitmore's jaw tightened, his expression unreadable. For the first time that evening, the polished calm of the mansion cracked. Everyone could sense it, something was terribly wrong, and the truth was only beginning to surface. Martha's voice lingered in the air, like a ghost no one could ignore. Mr. Whitmore's calm exterior began to crack as he motioned for the butler to escort her away. But his wife stopped him. "Let her speak," she said softly, her eyes never leaving the portrait. The tension in the room grew heavier. Martha hesitated, then took a deep breath. "There was another child," she said, "a girl. She and Eli were close like brother and sister. When he vanished, she cried for weeks. We thought he'd been adopted, but the papers were never signed. It was as if someone had erased him." The guests murmured, the story spreading like wildfire through the crowd. Some looked at the portrait, others at the family. Mr. Whitmore's daughter Clara stepped forward. "Mother," she said quietly, "I've seen that same scar in our old photos, but you always told me Daniel got it from falling off a horse." Her mother's lips trembled, the lie suddenly too heavy to hold. Martha's gaze met Mr. Whit. Her eyes filled with questions he didn't want to answer. "Sir," she said gently, "how did you find him?" He didn't reply. Instead, he turned toward the portrait, his reflection caught in the glass two faces, one truth hiding behind the other. Outside, thunder rumbled, as if echoing the storm rising inside the mansion. The guests watched in uneasy silence. Something about Daniel's past didn't fit, and everyone knew it. Whatever secrets were buried here, they were about to change everything. The storm outside grew louder, lightning flashing across the tall windows as the guests whispered in nervous tones. Martha stood trembling, but she didn't look away from Mr. Whitmore. "You know I'm telling the truth," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "Why are you pretending you don't?" Mr. Whitmore's face tightened, the mask of control slipping away. "Enough," he said sharply. "This is not the place for your stories." But his wife caught his arm. "Edward," she said, her voice shaking, "what is she talking about? Why does she recognize our son?" The question hung in the air like a blade. He turned toward her, eyes dark, mouth pressed thin. "Because sometimes," he said slowly, "the truth does more harm than lies." His words only deepened the silence. Clara stepped closer to Martha, her heart pounding. "If she's right, then who is Daniel? Who am I living with?" Martha reached into her apron pocket and pulled out an old photograph, its edges worn and faded. In it stood a group of children from the orphanage laughing, barefoot, and innocent. And there, in the center, was the same boy from the portrait, the same scar above his brow. Gasps filled the room. The thunder cracked again, and the lights flickered. Martha's hands shook as she held up the photo. "You can deny me, sir," she said, "but you can't deny him." Mr. Whitmore's expression darkened. Everyone could feel that the truth was seconds away from breaking free, and when it did, nothing in that mansion would ever be the same again. The room felt colder now, every breath heavy with fear and disbelief. Mr. Whitmore's eyes locked on the photograph in Martha's trembling hands. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, in a low, uneven voice, he said, "That picture? should not exist. His wife turned toward him, confused. What do you mean? Why would you say that? He didn't answer. Instead, he moved closer to the portrait, his reflection trembling in the flickering light. Martha stepped back, realizing something deeper was hidden behind his words. You knew about the orphanage, didn't you? She whispered. You knew who he was before you brought him here. The guests began to murmur again, sensing the truth pressing at the edges of the room. Suddenly, Clara spoke up, her face pale. Father, I found letters, old ones in your study. They were from an orphanage director, written years ago. They mentioned a missing boy and money. The room froze. Her mother's hand flew to her mouth. Edward, what did you do? Mr. Whitmore's jaw tightened as thunder boomed overhead. I did what I had to do, he said, his voice breaking for the first time. The boy was never meant to be found. Martha's eyes widened, the pieces falling into place. You paid to erase his past, she said softly, but you couldn't erase the truth. The guests stood motionless, watching the family unravel. The portrait of the boy seemed to stare back at them all, as if he, too, was waiting for the secrets of his stolen life to finally come to light. The chandelier swayed slightly as another roll of thunder echoed outside. Mr. Whitmore stood motionless, the truth finally too heavy to hide. Yes, he said quietly, I paid to bring him here, but not for the reason you think. His wife stared at him in disbelief, her voice barely a whisper. Then why, Edward? Why take another woman's child? He turned to Martha, eyes full of regret. Years ago, my wife and I lost our real son in an accident no one knew about. We couldn't face the world's pity. When I met the orphanage director, he told me about a boy bright kind, abandoned. I thought I was giving him a new life. I didn't know someone had been searching for him. Tears filled Martha's eyes. He wasn't abandoned, she said softly. His sister was adopted the same day, but they separated them because of a mistake in the papers. She grew up thinking he was dead. The room went still. Clara stepped forward, confusion clouding her face. His sister? She asked slowly. Martha nodded, looking at her closely. You have his eyes. Miss gasp ran through the guests. Mr. Whitmore's wife dropped the wineglass in her hand, the sound shattering through the silence. Clara's breath caught. You mean, I'm not your daughter? Mr. Whitmore's voice trembled. You were both taken from the same orphanage. I tried to protect you both. The storm outside finally broke, rain pounding against the glass as truth flooded the room. Two lost children's siblings, raised under lies, now standing face to face, their lives forever changed by a secret that refused to stay buried. The room fell into silence, broken only by the sound of rain hitting the tall windows. Clara stood frozen, her heart aching as she looked at Martha. All these years, she whispered, we were so close, yet never knew. Martha's eyes softened, filled with both pain and peace. The heart remembers what the world forgets, she said quietly. You two were meant to find each other again. Mr. Whitmore lowered his head, shame heavy in his eyes. I thought I was fixing a broken life, he said, but I only built it on another lie. His wife reached for his hand, tears running down her cheeks. Maybe now, she whispered, we can start living honestly. Clara stepped closer to the portrait of her brother. The boy's painted smile suddenly felt different, real, alive. Where is he now? She asked. Martha's expression grew sad but hopeful. He's alive, she said softly. He left years ago to find his sister. He never stopped searching. For a moment, the air seemed lighter, as if the truth had finally set everyone free. Clara smiled faintly through her tears. Then I'll find him, she said. He deserves to know he was never forgotten. Martha nodded, her voice trembling. And when you do, tell him, the maid who loved him like her own, never stopped believing. As the storm eased outside, the portrait glimmered faintly in the candlelight. Secret finally spoken, its silence finally broken. The truth, though painful, had brought them home.